Okay, let me pull up the agenda. Mayor, do you want to just start it for a few minutes so I can pull the agenda? I don't want to keep waiting.
Nope. Welcome everybody to the City of Coachella Economic Development Planning Subcommittee. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order at 5:14. I'm going to ask Gabe Perez if you could lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the
To the
flag
flag, United States of
America, to the
the Republic for which it stands,
one nation,
one nation, under God, indivisible.
liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll move on. Roll call. Just want to note for the record that we have both members of the subcommittee here. We'll move on to approval of the agenda. At this time, the committee may announce any items being pulled from the agenda. Gabe, is there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes recommended by staff.
I'll move approval of the agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll go now to approval of the minutes. These are the regular meeting minutes of October 27, 2022. What are the wishes of the subcommittee?
Move to approve.
I'll second. I will note that I did read the minutes, and all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. We'll move on now to presentations. We have a presentation on the electric scooter startup business. Gabriel?
City Manager Martin, is that your presentation?
No, that would be Anna. Can she be promoted to a panelist so that she can present? Ana Valencia.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Hello, Anna.
Hi. Would you like me to share my video or just share screen for the presentation?
No, go ahead and you can share your video, share the screen, whatever you'd like to do.
Okay, so I'm Ana Valenzuela. I'm a resident of Coachella. I will be presenting Bound Mobility. And here it goes. Let me go ahead. Okay. Can everyone see it?
We can see it.
Okay, perfect. So Bound Micromobility, sustainable, efficient, reliable. Meet the founders of Bound. Established in 2022, Bound Mobility was founded by CEO Juan Guevara and Isaac Hernandez in Coachella. New micromobility company. Here are our models that we have. We have the e-bikes and e-scooters. We also created an app for it. Our purpose. Bound is a micromobility company that was formed by natives of the city of Coachella with the purpose that in the future, the city will be recognized for its technological advances and great job opportunities. The scooters will be Coachella's heritage fleets, will be owned and operated by locals and will stimulate the local economy. Safety for the user. Most e-scooters and e-bike result in falls. Why do riders fall? Lack of strong equipment support and road damage. If they have strong dampers, the rides will be smooth and more enjoyable. 80% of e-scooter crashes result in falls. 20% of the accidents are primarily caused by hazardous surfaces. Dampers, other known as shocks, are something our scooters and bikes include. This will dramatically reduce the accidents and will comfort the riders to feel secure. Innovation and safety for the user. Bound seeks user safety and innovation through the state-of-the-art vehicles. Competing companies in the same industry have unsafe vehicles for the user without shock absorbers and without turn signals, which can cause accidents. Therefore, we decided to introduce a model with turn signals, shock absorbers, cell phone chargers, in order to make the use of these vehicles safer. We solve the problem of the pollution of scooters. Companies in the same sector, by not establishing parking spaces for scooters, generate disorders and visual pollution, which we will solve with a micro parking lot. And here's an example of our micro parking lots that will be established in strategic places within the city. We solve the CO2 pollution by replacing it with electricity. Companies in the same micromobility industry carry scooters to charge them, and as they go, they are spewing CO2 in their path. Battery swap versus warehouse charge. Fuel emission savings versus pickup warehouse charging. Here's the contamination level difference. Swap charging and warehouse charging. To avoid contamination by CO2, we will use a small electric vehicle that will go to each area with recharge batteries to change them for the discharged ones of the scooters. Bound versus other. Sorry about that. I'm trying to minimize this screens. There it goes. Theft against scooters and e-bikes cause a difficult recuperation plan. Many of the used software and current products makes tracking the last known location of the vehicles an extensive process that can take up to 15 minutes. Bound scooters have the latest software with the fast tracking GPS system embedded. This decreases the recuperation time by half. Each of our bound scooters come with a backup battery included in the instance that the main power source dies. Bound batteries stay charged up to 20 days, unlike competitor batteries that stay charged for 1 week. Bound scooters come with electromagnetic brakes, unlike other vehicles that use outdated brake technology. Bound versus others. Bound fleets are owned by locals, which means more money stays in local cities to boost economy. Swappable battery versus warehouse charging to lower CO2 emissions up to 70%. Our operation hours. Bound is a 24/7 transportation service company. We provide local commuters easy access to city scooters. Most residents rely on local transportation to get to work, school, or run errands. We make transportation accessible to all, and especially for night shift workers. Our rates. Price for normal user, $1 to activate, and 35 cents per minute. We also have a program for low-income users, 50 cents to unlock and 15 cents per minute to ride. How will it benefit the city? Software accessible to any person and company that can benefit from it. Our software interacts with the community and the city, allowing businesses to advertise on our app to attract more customers. It will also boost the local economy by allowing the local food delivery driver access to our vehicles at a special rate, reduce congestion and excessive reliance on cars. Special event alerts. Alerts about new events in the city and their location appear in the app, such as Coachella Fest, Stagecoach, Dia de los Muertos, El Grito, etc. What is Bound enterprise value? Although Bound is currently in its startup phase, it has sparked the attention of various investors and many who will wait for inventory to be available. All our investors are thoroughly informed on the company's development and metrics. Recession and inflation. 1 out of 5 Americans use e-rides for commuting to work. Bound will always be available during all circumstances of our life. As gas prices increase, our prices stay the same and affordable for our local residents. Having access to affordable transportation is essential in the Coachella Valley, since many local residents rely on public transportation. Bound coming to Coachella. Bound will officially launch February 1st, 2023. This will bring 150 new and advanced e-scooters all around the city of Coachella, available through the official app. Thank you for allowing us to share our new technology. We hope you will give us permission to deploy our high-tech electronic vehicles in our city. For any questions or concerns, Juan Guevara is present also here. If you would like to ask any questions, he'll be more than happy to answer them. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Anna, for your presentation. And I imagine that staff, you're looking for direction from us as to allowing these into the city.
Yes,
Is that correct, Selena?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
Okay. Councilmember Delgado?
So I have a few questions. Is that you identified, have you identified the areas where they would be stationed at?
yes, we have. We have a map.
Then do you have that map with you? Can you put it up so we can see the locations?
Do you have- Is it possible for you to allow Juan Guevara to answer that, since he's the one who
Yes.
keeps track of the app? Please?
Oh, are you, is he in the attendees that needs to be
Or
promoted?
Yes.
you can just, yeah.
He's now a
I see
panelist.
them.
He
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
got promoted. Anna, if you could mute your screen, that way you can go ahead.
Okay, no problem.
And then
Thank you. Hello, Juan.
Hello. Is it me? New Year's? Your whole speaker. Hello, everybody. My name is Juan Guevara, and I'm here local here at Coachella City, Coachella. And basically, what the scooters are gonna be, we have seen all the scooters have been around, spread out through the city, in Coachella and Indio and other cities as well. So basically, what we're trying to create is just create spaces that when a rider gets a scooter, he'll rent it. They could have the choice to leave it at their house and then we'll pick it up with certain minutes, but it'll cost a small fee. And the reason why we're causing this is because we have seen a lot of people have complained about scooters being in front yards, something like that. So we're trying to make sure to clear the visual pollution by allowing only to return the scooters to locations where it's gonna prevent anybody from having being blocking the road or being near someone's house. They're trying to beautify by make it, because I see a lot of scooters show up in front of someone's front yard and the person complains, hey, I'm trying to make my house look nice. I have all the scooters outside, kids pass by and knock them down. So we're trying to do, and the feature we want is, and I put the next month is to actually install electric devices so they could be locked and permanent, will prevent theft and any other tilting the scooters falling down and blocking the passage for people to walk or wheelchairs. So basically we have a very extensive map on our app working on right now. So where the scooters are gonna be spread almost in every corner, but they can only return them, but only in certain spots where they could pick them up. It's to kind of clean up the mess. And then, so they won't, and the bikes are gonna be in certain areas as well, not all areas, so they wouldn't block any type of sidewalks. Because we know how everything is going. We've been watching how everything's going in both cities. So we kind of want to make it more of a visual, to make the city look more beautified and with better vehicles as well.
I think one, the council member was asking you for a map of
Yeah,
where
the
you.
The map we don't have is because we have the only map, we have it on the actual app. Is
So
where
you don't have, you don't
No,
have one.
I have the map right now because it was actually a pretty big map of every single side of us, every street 53 all the way to 54 to the beginning of the AMPMs that we have making. But it's a lot of parking spaces are virtual ones that we're trying to put. We do have that.
I think we-
Okay.
I think
And
if you could provide us that, Selena, that'd be good.
Yeah, I will. Let me see.
Yes, sir. I will work with Sound Mobility to obtain a map.
and then Juan, just so I'm understanding, if one of these bikes or scooters are left in a certain location that's not in the identified area where they can be left at, what happens at that time?
Well, the persons that we're partnering with to move the vehicles, they will have to pick it up within a certain amount of time, within an hour to an hour and a half, depending on time. But they wouldn't be left out anywhere anymore, just so you don't see the same scooter over every same day. They'll be reset every certain hour. So once the rider rides it and they don't have any intention to ride it in the app as a reserve it for any more further time, they will be brought back to a location was where they usually always parked at.
And then these partners that you have, how many partners do you have that will be picking up these scooters and bikes?
Well, what we have is with Trust, we have about 3 partners and they have their own companies their own business. So they'll have their own operators to pick up certain amount of scooters. It'll be more of a more tight situation. They'll be more on top of everything. And then the main thing, like, is going with these scooters and bikes, is that there'll be less of a mess. You seeing people driving around picking up large loads of amounts of bikes and scooters because it's just swappable. So they just show up, swap the battery, and it keeps going without having to have all kinds of dead batteries all spread out across the city.
For staff is because the plan is here to add another 150. How many current scooters do we have now?
We currently have 150 in our city, I think. I believe it was, the last time I checked, we were at 75 and they increased it to 125. And I believe we're at now like probably about 150. I can have Anna confirm that too.
So are we doubling then what we have?
There was a number that if we put as a base to start, we were trying to say 100 scooters and 50 bikes, but that's not, that wouldn't be the official number. We want like a trial run. It wouldn't matter the amount of vehicles, so we could show that our technology is better, safer, and a lot more beneficial to the city. As in, like I said, our scooters are owned by locals. So as I say, like, so we put 100 scooters, 50 scooters are bought by one local and another local, and then we have our scooters. So all the money goes to them and they only pay a software fee versus all the money leaving to those big corporations out of our city. All that money will stay here. So our next partner could open our next restaurant, our next anything, but the money that's being generated in its own local community. So most of the money will stay within ourselves here, the city. It's not gonna leave us. It's gonna be pretty much we own it, and locals could buy fleets. That's pretty much what we're trying to get to.
I do have a concern with the amount of scooters that we would have in the city. And then also is, Juan, have you guys tested this out, or has any other city tested this model out that you're presenting to us today?
Well, pretty much this model is basically, it's like any other model that is out there, but just the only thing is better is safer vehicles and creating actual parking spaces, which will be eventually it's gonna be a must for every city instead of to be able to fight all that visual pollution, because that's what we're trying to do. So anything that we're doing is just adding things to make it better, something that was out there. And like I said, by us creating opportunity, like I said, by creating lower, like there's no programs that will go low income vehicles to delivery drivers.
One is bound in another city.
No, we wanted, like, that's what we said. We're locals, and our first company wanted it to be at the city of Coachella. That's what we have gone to the city with many times, and that's for the opportunity to be able. We got this far to be recognized as a city, to be big. We want to make it worldwide, but know that we came out of the city of Coachella.
Councilman,
We have experience managing as well in big cities.
any more questions, Councilman? I have a few.
No, go ahead, Mayor.
One, you mentioned that if somebody doesn't return the bike or scooter to the designated area and say they take it to the house, that it's like the company or whoever it is that you are independent contractors are going to charge a fee to pick it up.
No, it would be like a $1 fee, but every house will have certain spots very, very close by. So kind of like invite them to return it to a spot instead of leaving it, because some people don't take it to their house, to leave it at the neighbor's house, in their yard. So we're trying to prevent all that within, because we have that feature just to make it better, not to make it worse.
Okay, so I think it's important that we get a good understanding of where these locations are and how many are going to be in each community. Because in some ways we are changing how the communities function, right? And you know, are they going to be on the sidewalk? Are they going to be in the front of the community? And then it might be a good idea to designate them for all kind of electric scooter companies. Like, this is your area that you're going to set up and drop off. I personally believe that competition is good, whether it be Bound or Bird, or I think the other one's Lime or whatever. They're in other cities, and I imagine that if we allow one, more are going to want to come. And I think Councilmember Delgado hit the nail on the head in terms of what is our maximum that we're going to allow. if we do 150 here and then we have another 150 for Bird, that's 300. Is that too much? Maybe what we want to think about as a collective is establishing a limit of 200 and then, 100 each, 100 each. And if we get a third, maybe it splits or there's a lottery or something of that sort. But you get to a point where too many are too many, right? And but I do believe that competition is good. I don't know what our contracts look like with Bird. And maybe this is a conversation with our city attorney and how we can mend these because we're getting more people wanting to do these. But I do believe that at least for the standpoint of a local business wanting to establish themselves and to provide competition to and that there isn't a monopoly, I think this is a good idea. I would like to see more things flushed out. And then on the other side, I think it's also important that we start to get into a conversation of what each, and I'm sure it'll be on that map of what each of them costs. So it's $1 initiation fee, 35 cents per mile. There is a low income program on this program, which is great. And then, I think that's something that we need to understand. And then I'm not sure if the city's also benefiting or what. I don't remember what we did with Bird, but it should be equal across the board if we are. If there's some type of fee, so just something to think about, just so that we have just fairness all the way across the board.
Gabriel, I think that we do generate revenue from the Bird scooters. Right? Gabriel Martin or Gabriel Perez.
Yeah, I would defer that to Gabriel Martin because I'm actually not sure if we do, or Selena.
Yes, that is correct. I can look at the contract and get back to you guys.
Yeah. And then I think they've been operating for about a year now, the Bird scooters.
Yeah.
And it would be nice to know how much we brought in 2022. And then what's the threshold that we have with them? So the threshold that we have with them is the max is 150. Or is their threshold higher?
Correct. They would have to run any increases. They have to consult staff.
Okay. I do remember when it came through, one of our concerns was just like the conversation we're having now about how many. And I remember they wanted to bring in more scooters. And then we asked them to come in a little bit lighter as far as how many scooters they would have throughout the city. And then if I recall, for their operation, they have employees that just come out and then take the scooters back to their locations. I think that's the way they have their operations. So I don't think during the day they pick them up, but I think maybe certain hours of the day. I would like to know maybe from Bird as well is when do they pick up? Is it
I see
during
them
the
I see them in the morning and night, council member.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, they have program managers that are here locally, and I've seen the team pick up the scooters, like the mayor indicated, at times in the morning or in the evening, and they are responsible for propping them back up and then placing them in out of streets or what have you, and they've done a really good job at making sure that the scooters are where they need to be and that they're charged up, which I think that's how Bound Mobility distinguishes themselves from the competition, is that they just simply replace the batteries to activate the scooters again, so they don't have to take them to a warehouse and charge them. And they have those dampers that make them really a very comfortable, smooth ride. Staff did try out their Bound Mobility items, both the scooter and the bike, and they were actually really amazing. We were very, very impressed.
Well, I think the bike would be a good combination because Bird doesn't provide that, right? Not the bikes.
No, they do not provide e-bikes.
And then Selena, I think it's also important that just going back to the issue of how many is how how we're gonna look at that, because if I'm not mistaken, the city also had an effort going with the TCC where we applied for
Yeah.
bike. And so potentially, if there's now 3 companies, so how is that all gonna interface? So we have to kind of just think through, you know, how much
Absolutely.
fairness, and then, you know, and then do we have an obligation to the consumer to notify them about the cost of each one? You know what I mean? And so I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of, I'm reminded of like when I sat on Sunline and the taxi cab conversation
Mhm.
and their consumer obligation. But having said that, though, I think that this is, I think competition's good. You know, local company wanting to do good. If you could get us those maps and then really kind of think through how everything's going to function before we move to offer them. I don't know if it's a franchise agreement or whatever it is, but I really want to think those things through and how it all is going to operate as a city.
Okay, yes, absolutely. Thank you.
I
Okay,
agree. And then also though, can we have it come back to this subcommittee prior to going anywhere else or going to council? So I want to iron out the details, you know, before we even consider taking the next step. Is some of like the stuff that the mayor has highlighted, and then some of the information that I requested as well.
and then for Juan and for Anna, just so that you understand, it's a yes. We want information on the sites, and then we have an internal conversation that we need to answer about what's the overall number for us, and then how we're going to handle that through these contracts.
We really appreciate that because like I said, competition is good, and like I said, we're willing to hear you guys. You guys are the leaders of the community, and it's our first big adventure as in business wise that we're trying to just do in Coachella. We're trying to replicate this across the whole US. Hopefully, that's what we're trying to do. We have a lot of vehicles, and anything that you guys give us as feedback right now, whether it's good or bad, we take it really good because we take it from people that are not what they're talking about, and we appreciate you guys even telling us that there's a bit of a competition and all that stuff, and you guys are gonna hear it out, think it through. That's good for us. I appreciate that. Means a lot to us. It means that you guys are gonna think it through, not just brushing us to the side. So that means a lot to us. We appreciate that, especially because we're locals and we support our local officials as well. Everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Juan.
Thank
All right,
you.
we'll move on to item number 2. This is RV storage, Gabriel.
Great. Second, I'll share my screen.
I think that before we get the presentation, do I have to remove myself from this agenda item, considering that I live on Vista del Norte? I don't-
To abstain. She would have to recuse herself because if this project moves forward, it would be a financial gain for her property. So yeah, it's best that you, because I'm going to do the same thing on the next item. But go ahead, Gabriel.
Second. Okay, I think everyone can see my screen, right? So this is Coachella RV storage. And if we can have John Rodriguez promoted as a panelist. And let me just check if there's anyone else. And then John, if you can let me know if there's anyone else that needs to be promoted to provide any commentary as well after my presentation. Okay, so I'll start. Coachella RV storage is proposed by High Tech Consulting. This project is proposed on 17 acres, located north of the 10 freeway, just south of Vista del Norte Street. The applicant proposes a 527 RV storage spaces. 367 of those spaces would be covered. 160 would be uncovered. There would be 70 storage lockers, 10 by 10. And this is located in the manufacturing service zone. It conflicts with the general plan because the general plan calls for a regional retail district land use. Automotive uses are listed as secondary uses in the general plan. So this would be considered an automotive use. and therefore couldn't be a primary use. So right now, there is no primary use that they propose that would be permitted, so it wouldn't be allowed. So we had a discussion about this with the city attorney to figure out, is it possible for them to do this RV storage project? Ideally, the city would have a primary use on the site that would be revenue generating for the regional retail district. That's why we have that district, to generate revenue. RV storage doesn't necessarily do that, and it is a secondary use. This is the location. And you can see on the general plan, it's red for regional retail. This is a site plan. So they do propose outdoor RV storage as well as stored covered spaces. And then you can see on the right-hand side, the applicant does propose to potentially reserve a hotel space and a retail space in order to accommodate the RV storage. So in our conversation, we checked with the city attorney, if they were able to secure a hotel site, right? And they were incentivized to recruit a hotel to locate on the site as well as a retailer, could we enter into development agreement with them in order to allow the RV storage site? So they would map out the RV storage on site, and we could not support the proposal as proposed because it's not revenue generating. But the applicant proposes that they would reserve a site that would accommodate 100,000 square feet for a 108 room 3 to 4 star hotel. So what would happen is the city would collect a one-time mitigation fee. We don't know what that mitigation fee would be, but it would be charged per space, right? Typically, RV storage does not bring in any revenue to a city unless there's like some kind of mitigation fee. So we would propose that we charge a mitigation fee, right? The mitigation would be charged annually for each of those spaces, but that annual fee could be reduced based on financial performance of a hotel and if the hotel is recruited on site. That would be subject to the development agreement. The total site would be 126,000 square feet for a hotel and a retail lot. Let me show you what that looks like on site. So originally I showed you a site plan that accommodates RV storage in this location to the west, but they would be incentivized to bring in a hotel that would operate on the site. If they bring in a hotel and under certain financial performance of the hotel over several years, that mitigation fee that they're paying per space could eventually terminate in the long term, right? Because there would be ongoing TOT coming in from the hotel and retail sales tax coming from a retail space along the frontage. Other considerations is that there is a KPC project, which is a specific plan that has been submitted to the city located to the east. And so one of the considerations for council in this committee could be, well, does it make sense for there to be RV storage? Do we anticipate this would actually develop as a full-scale commercial center and therefore would eventually develop there, and therefore there wouldn't be the need for RV storage. But we think this could be an innovative approach to bring in a hotel that I think the city has been attempting to attract. It's probably a good location for a hotel off the freeway. It would serve a use by bringing in RV storage. There would be fees coming in. If the hotel doesn't happen, we would be collecting mitigation fees in perpetuity. That's the end of my staff report. John Rodriguez is participating in this meeting, and if he might have anything to add or anything else from the applicant.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Gabriel, for a nice presentation. My name is John Rodriguez with High Tech Consulting. Nice to be with you guys this afternoon or this evening. One of the things that we really are encouraged by is working with staff. They've been able to help us out. I want to thank Gabriel Martin as well as Nathan Statham with all the help they've given us too, and you know, showing us a lot of favor in this project. We are looking at, and the site plan that was done that shows a hotel is much like what has been done across the valley with the Fairfield Inn kind of concept, size wise and as far as footprint wise and parking. So those are a couple of the things that we've put into our plan. The developer who's looking to purchase the property has extensive background across the country with RV storage projects as well as commercial development. So again, thank you guys very much for everything, and I'll answer any questions that I can.
Gabriel and John, was there any consideration of RV sale? And I look at this area and I'm trying to envision and you know, a very similar area, and the only thing I can think of is Banning off the 10, where you know there are a couple of RV sales, and then on the side of it there is RV storage as well. And so as trucks come down the 10, you know, my hope is that we maximize that retail possibility. And you know, there could be a way where you blend the RV sale as well as RV storage, and then with the hotel, just so that we can maximize our revenue generation in that area. And I'm sure that in the, you know, and particularly everything that's you know, off the Interstate 10, there could be a way to, you know, kind of promote RV sale, and then as you come in, as on Vista del Norte, the RV sales kind of in the front, and the storage is, you know, in these areas. And I'd also like to get a good understanding of what the visually of what it's going to look like too, because we do have RV storage off Avenue 50, because there's a storage facility there, and if you look down, they have RV storage, boat storage, RV storage that's you know, air conditioned. And so I want to get some, what's the word I'm looking for, renderings, but site plan on what this potentially can look like.
So one of the just to answer a question, Mayor, there that you brought up, this developer that we're working with on this project has many RV storage projects kind of nationwide. So that this, you know, I can definitely get you some images that would show what those are like. I think I may have even shared some of those with Gabe, but they're not really in the retail business as far as RV sales go. That's not really their business model. Developing this project for a retail element is something they're familiar with, and that's, you know, kind of why we set aside that hotel area. It's not to say that they wouldn't entertain that idea. I don't know. I don't represent them on their business model side of things, but I get what you're saying, and there are some more large pieces of property, one adjacent to the west, and also one adjacent to the east, that potentially could serve that additional retail purpose. It does help, obviously, that across the street on Vista del Norte, on the north side, we have a 375 unit RV resort that's going in there that's currently under construction by the same owner. So they kind of would work in conjunction, but like I said, they're not in the retail sales business as far as RVs go.
Yeah, I think you should ask them though, because they're asking for consideration on a change in our general plan. And so, you know, and I definitely like what staff is doing to try to maintain the the economics of this land as how it was defined on the general plan. So that's something, you know, you can get back to us on if they would be willing to think about how they could integrate. And they don't have to do the sales, they could maybe lease that.
Sure.
But what I see is a bunch of RV sales popping up all over Indio Boulevard, and I see it on Washington Street as well. And since we're the first people coming into the desert, and I know there's a lot of folks that what I see is they're using Avenue 48. And Indio's got these really beautiful designed RV developments there, and they're going right through Grapefruit, and they're accessing the I-10. And so the question, you know, is how do we maintain a good blend? And then if we change the general plan here, there's gonna be others behind you that are gonna want the same thing. And then now are we gonna be, you know, kind of looking at a storage, manufacturing use, et cetera. So I'm just trying to, you know, bring in the max revenue that the city can get in these areas, understanding that you're initiating a Me Too kind of position where everybody's going to want to go to.
Sure.
You know, so
And we want to, you know, when we brought up and when the city, you know, recommended the incentivizing, you know, on a per unit basis, that would, let's just be honest, kind of replicate a TOT type situation. You know, our client was on board, and you know, if that incentive needs to remain in place to generate revenue and continue to generate revenue, I think that's something that we would look at, right? I mean, I don't think it necessarily has to go away when a hotel retail site gets developed. Maybe in our conversation with the ownership, maybe we can look at that, you know, that incentive going to the city on a long-term basis, or in perpetuity to the project. And that would be something that, you know, the city could continue to generate revenue on, well past even a retail hotel development going into place.
yeah, that you see that's something I feel a little bit more comfortable with too. That's you're absolutely right. It should be in perpetuity.
Yeah, and I, again, Mayor, you know, we want to work with the city of Coachella. I mean, that's our desire. You know, they've invested significant amount of money on the north side of Vista del Norte with the Coachella Lakes RV Park, and in complement, you know, to the 375 units of TOT that will be generated there. You know, if we've got you know, close to 500 spaces here that are generating some income to the city, you know, we would definitely be interested in that.
Okay. All right. I think
Mayor, one thing,
yeah.
Mayor, one thing I wanted to add is, you know, and we could explore other options too. You could see on this figure, there's a retention basin. Maybe there's options that there's, you know, underground chambers, and you could do above that. Maybe you can do the retail sales next to the freeway where it's really visible to people traveling on the freeway. But we haven't talked about anything like that, but, you know, there could potentially be other options available.
And one of our big desires is with bringing us to the economic subcommittee, Mayor, is that we're trying to just get a firm idea on is this something that would be supported not only by city staff, but by the city council, and something that's of a benefit to the city. If in perpetuity we've got 450 units that continue on, even after the hotel retail sites are built, you know, there could be a considerable amount of generated funds there. So yeah, go ahead.
I think generally, yes. I will say that your site plan, it needs to not look like a storage. It needs to look maybe more like an RV kind of camping facility, but it is a storage. So what we don't want to see is nothing but blacktop out there. It's got, you got to really think about the aesthetics. You are next to a community that is year round. I mean, the councilwoman lives across the street. You don't want her getting mad, so, so we definitely, I think it aesthetically, it needs to be pleasing, and at the same time, it doesn't have to have this, kind of manufacturing zoning, kind of look.
Right.
Uh,
And we're not trying to just create a parking lot. And a lot of times that's what happens, right, with the storage unit, if it's not done correctly. And, like I said, this group has done this over a pretty big swath. One of the reasons, we have the retention basin in the location that it is in, other than just the topography supporting that, is to create some nice buffer and make it look good as you come down I-10 to the very first exit in the Coachella Valley, which is Dillon Road. So, and again, obviously we would want to dress up Vista del Norte to make sure that visually it looks good, even for those who are coming out of the RV resort that we're currently under construction on, just generating a nice street scene, which is not on Vista del Norte right now, sadly, but we would look to help that out.
No, understood. I mean, potentially, Gabriel, I mean, what's the long-term vision of this area? I mean, we moved down this route. Did we envision, I don't know, the highway of the vehicle cars, or what's the, like, what other complementary uses can we get in this area eventually? And understanding that freeway, like boating would be great here one year, like, kind of a boating sales, or even off-road vehicles, like it just, I don't know. Understanding that freeway development is very difficult at times.
Yeah, I know in terms of like automobile sales, there's like certain distance requirements from other sales, and I think that distance is usually like 10 miles. And I think this is within 10 miles of the auto center in Indio. So it's probably too close to generate like more car sales in the area, unless it was some other company that didn't exist in Indio. But the regional retail district really promotes hotels, retail, restaurants, and so this area is a little bit challenging if you think about it, coming off the Dillon Road, because this area isn't really immediately accessible to the freeway. You still have to make a drive down the street. It gets cut off at the canal. But one thing to think about is if Vista del Norte connects eastward to the KPC specific plan, and that's an approved development of 9,000 homes. I don't know if this would generate that kind of market for, more retail uses on the site in lieu of a RV storage facility. We would potentially be getting a 108 unit hotel and retail space, which would be a benefit to the city. But, a lot of it really depends if there's going to be development to the east, and if that would support a market for other uses on the site.
Yeah, understood. Okay. All right. I think you guys got some good direction with respect to this, and hopefully you guys can come back with a little bit more just or answers to the questions of the TOT in perpetuity, and ask the questions of RV sales as well.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, well, welcome back to council member. And then we do have downtown 6th Street sale property proposal, and which I will be abstaining because I own property within that area.
Yeah, thank you.
Gabriel, will you be doing the presentation?
I will, yes. Share my screen right now. And if we could promote Mr. William, he is in the audience. He might have some comments on this, but I'll have a brief presentation. So this item is called, the project is called La Terraza. The applicant is William Aguirre. The proposed project is a two-story building located at 1562 6th Street in Coachella. The applicant proposes a retail store, 2,302 square feet on the first floor, and the second floor with 2 offices and a studio with open terrace of 1,583 square feet. So this is the location. So you might be familiar with this, across from the old City Hall. It's a vacant site, and it's currently between the bakery and the boutique store and Todek. Here's a street view of that location. So the applicant would like to develop that property. Now the applicant, Mr. Ceja, or the owner, Mr. Ceja, owns the building where Todek is located, as well as the bakery and the boutique. So these are some renderings that the applicant provided initially. We provided some recommendations on design on how that could work, but it's a narrow site. And so they provided a 3D rendering of what that would look like. So you could see the 2-story building, retail, potentially a restaurant, first floor, and then you would have office and a living suite on the second floor in a terrace. So the reason why this is in front of you today is because our Pueblo Viejo revitalization plan talks about this idea of incorporating paseos and just like these experiences that people would get coming to the downtown. And so we thought there might be a possibility to make a paseo work, working with Mr. Ceja and Mr. Aguirre, because they own these 3 properties. And there is probably some space back here where a paseo could work. But to make that work, they're supportive of that idea, but obviously if this becomes a public space, then they potentially lose out on using that for extra building space for either all their 3 properties. So one idea that's been talked about is the city owns obviously the library area, this open area between which there's a large canopy and seating area, but we own this landscape area next to Mr. Ceja's property. Right now it's landscape right now, but there could be the opportunity of maybe a land exchange between the applicant, property owner, and the city. And this is what it looks like. So it's open landscape area. Right now it's not really used. And so the question would be, does the city would the city council support in land exchange, or do we anticipate we would want to preserve that as a city asset, and maybe it makes sense that it stay a landscape area in the downtown. So these are the policies from the Pueblo Viejo implementation strategy, so including paseos and plazas. These are some images from that revitalization plan. So this is an idea of a paseo, something that exists between 2 buildings where people can gather. This is another image from the plan, which is from downtown Redlands. They created paseo behind their businesses, which was an alleyway, but it's also the opportunity to create public art. And there's an opportunity to gate it off if the city decided to do that. For example, if they want to close it off at nighttime. This is the Pueblo Viejo plan that was developed in 1985 by the city. So you can see the city hall is up here, and anticipated this type of development across the street on 6th Street. So it had this idea of paseos included. This would actually be the location of the library today. So we would use this paseo concept in this location here, where Mr. Ceja owns property. So some options is to pursue the land exchange and coordinate a paseo design with the owner. So we would have to figure out how that would work. Another option is to require an easement for dedication for the paseo, but no ownership. One of the things the applicant is requesting is to put a canopy over the city right away along the frontage. So it's like they're asking for that from the city. So, we could instead ask for an easement dedication in the rear. Maybe this, the committee does not like the paseo being an effort the city initiates, and it's really up to the private developer if they want to do a paseo, but we're not involved. Then last, maybe this location is not ideal for a paseo. And so those are some of the considerations I think this subcommittee should have with respect to this, but we think it's an opportunity and the applicant is potentially willing to do this. There's more details to work out, but we'd like to present this idea to the subcommittee. Member, you are on mute if you're speaking.
And then can you take down can you put back up if you have the slide for the different types of businesses? Was that on one of the slides?
Which one is it? Is it like an aerial?
So I see the aerial one here. Can you go back to where we would see the exchange
Oh, okay.
right there?
Okay. So this shows the city-owned property.
Yeah.
Right. And one thing I forgot to mention is, well, what would the applicant do with it? So the applicant has talked about being able to incorporate another restaurant by developing this into additional building space. So if they were to exchange this, we were to exchange this for the paseo property, I'm sorry, this area, then the city would own it. We would have to maintain it and then program it. You know, we could work with the applicant on what type of improvements go in here. One of the things to also think about is that there are trash enclosures here. What they've done in the city of Redlands is that they've coordinated trash service with the city. So we do have trash facilities across the street at the old city hall or behind the library. So there could be opportunity to kind of work with the applicant on making that their point of trash service.
And the idea for if we did a land swap where we have that small piece of land is to possibly bring in a restaurant. Is that what Mr. Ceja is saying?
That's one of the ideas that was presented, but right now it's very conceptual this time.
Because, so what's the size of that piece there?
So this area that the city owns would be 922 square feet. The paseo area is about 1,952 square feet. So, you know, when you think about the land exchange, there's probably more value to the property fronting on 6th Street, which is why we recommend, you know, that be a smaller area compared to the paseo, which is kind of the back of house area essentially.
You know, I like that there would be a paseo right there, that they would be opened, and then that would then connect obviously to the library, right? So there would be access to that as well from that side. Sorry, I'm zooming into this page. I think some things need to be weeded out, like as far as where the trash bins go. And then also is, you know, whether it's better for us to maintain it or whether it's better for a private entity to come in and possibly look into that area as well. And then is Mr. Ceja here?
I don't think Mr. Ceja is here.
No,
but
he's not attending. I am on behalf of Mr. Ceja.
Hi. And so that in the back, I know that space isn't being used. So in back of Todek and then obviously in back of the Panaderia, that space there, what is that currently being used for besides the trash bins?
There is a storage and there is a hot water tank, a heater behind, but that is going to be relocated inside the building. So everything that is used for storage, it really will be relocated inside. Now, there is a portion by Vine that is used for a gas meter. There's a gas meter, there is something else on that corner. There's a little bin next to the trash bin. So I believe that can be enclosed with a nice metal, those laser cut metal panels to enclose it. Also, the electrical panels right by the existing building on the face of the building, that can be also embedded in and covered with nice metal covers. So to enhance or to give beauty of existing conditions, I think it's feasible. And the trash bins also, it could be turned into very small enclosure, just to like a transition disposal, and maybe 2-3 times a day take those to the big trash bin behind the library. On all those items that you can see right now from the aerial, those will be totally removed. It will be totally clean. So I don't see really a problem by leaving some spaces for his storage. There's not going to be storage.
And then obviously there's access to the panaderia and to Todek from the back end, right?
Right, there are doors, yes. So those will be utility doors. And the other building, which is the clinic, let's call it for now the clinic. There's a clinic right now as a tenant. They also have one door. We will call it as utility doors or escape doors, emergency doors.
I think in the fire code, we have to have access.
Correct.
Multiple accesses, right?
So all those buildings will have access or emergency, but not. We don't foresee like a business extending the cafeteria or the panaderia on the paseo. No, I don't think so. But perhaps maybe some benches, trees, some creating creating a paseo without a bending spot.
And so if you have to, I'm sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Except for the new area that is proposed for exchange, there will be a cafeteria type of or ice cream place, but not really chairs or tables outside of that, because the library already have tables right under the shade, the pergola or trellis. So we don't see the need to increase more tables.
So in that outside area, when you say a cafeteria, you're talking about indoor or outdoor?
No, it's an enclosed indoor building. We have a plan. We included, maybe Gabriel has access to
Yeah,
that drawing.
something, if I could pull it up. And then just one other thing I want to bring up, council member, is so at the end I provided some options of how that could work, right? It could either be a land exchange, it could be an easement dedication that we require in this process because they have to do the encroachment into the city right away along the frontage. One other option I didn't bring up is, and we haven't talked to the applicant about this, is, we could actually also talk to them about, well, maybe the city wants to buy just that portion. And so, I don't think there's an obligation to, I think what we really want to know is, is the idea of the paseo something we should pursue, and then we can kind of recommend the best path forward to council when this goes forward for approval.
Okay, I do like the idea of a paseo. I think it would be a nice addition to the city. We currently don't have any, or at least I know we have some like alleys that we have are quite common in the downtown and some of these older neighborhoods, but they're kind of just these alleys that are really not used. So I do like the thought of a paseo, but I would also like more information about, who's going to take on those costs, what the transition would be. Obviously, giving up that land, as you said, is a frontage to the 6th Street. And so, that is a prime location as well. So I would like to know all of that as well. And I know that the land swap is, if there's consideration for a land swap, I understand that we're doubling the land, but we still don't have obviously that frontage to 6th Street. And then additionally, I do have a question, since the question is whether, at least for me, if I would be considerate of a paseo, is that, so for, those doors that we have in the back, usually those are used, to bring in supplies that you don't want to bring in through the front entrance. And so my concern is that if it's going to be a paseo, would they still be using those doors to bring in supplies and bring in merchandise? Because obviously that wouldn't work very well either if we're going to be using as a paseo for, for the residents and for the community, for those doors in the back, to what extent are they going to be utilized?
Mhm. No, that's good feedback. And I think taking that feedback, we could work with the applicant on addressing that. And, my discussion with Mr. Aguirre, we've talked about, well, maybe the city can come up with some concepts of what that paseo could look like that we could bring back and see if that's the kind of character that the subcommittee and city council would like to see.
Correct. We created already some ideas. We have a floor plan for the new building and for the paseo as well. Those are in the share folder on Dropbox. Now, to answer Ms. Delgado question, I have to talk to the owner, Mr. Ceja, to find out what percentage of use of that door, the rear doors, does he use? I don't think he uses 100%, but definitely sometimes he uses, I believe. But if they're a utility and emergency, and I compared to what Redland has, because I went there to Redlands during the afternoon and took some pictures. There you go. That's the plan. Yes. So yeah, I visit Redlands, and they also have the same idea. They have these utility doors, and even they use some spaces as for cafe, coffee tables. They have, but in our case now, but they use as utility doors as well. But
maybe the utility doors, and this is just consideration, is that maybe they can only be used at certain time of the day. So maybe morning, right? So that at least during the day when we have more traffic there, that we wouldn't be bringing any cleaning supplies. It also makes sense, especially for like the panaderia and restaurants that usually use the back door. Obviously, it's an emergency door and it's a fire code requirement, but as well as that they usually bring in cleaning supplies, things that obviously you wouldn't bring through the front just because you're dealing with food and there's some type of storage in the back. So I do understand that, but maybe there'll be consideration, if you guys bring this back, that they'll be used during certain times of the day, perhaps in the morning, or, well, it'll probably have to be more in the morning hours, so that at least it's not being consistently used all throughout the day. And I do, I visited Redlands quite a bit, and I really like what they're doing through their downtown, and I really enjoy the paseos. I think that's a big attraction in their downtown. We really enjoy and we seek it out. So I like the idea of the paseo, but I would like, Gabriel, for you to bring back as to, what those options are with the paseo, what the costs are going to be, whether it's best to do a swap, whether it's best to purchase the area, or whether, we kind of have, maybe the applicant take on some of those costs, but I really want to kind of have the breakdown of some of these things.
Okay, yeah, we'll work with the applicant from here, but it sounds like the idea of the paseo could be a good one. So we'll work on, what we recommend is the best arrangement for that.
Yeah,
Would you like
and
that
I
to
have,
come back to the subcommittee?
yes, please. And I have to say though, for me, I know we're talking about, possibly purchasing this, but, I don't want to give up the land next to the library either. So if there's any other options, I prefer not to give it up. I really don't. There's many things that we can do with it. I know that right now we have some, it's basically being used for plants. It's really not being used at all. But obviously, as we're building the downtown, some of the things that we get asked for consistently is more space, whether it's, gathering space. Obviously, it's beneficial to some of the other businesses as well, but people like to gather in these places. So just some further recommendations.
Okay, well, staff will continue to work with Mr. Aguirre and the property owner and bring something back to the subcommittee.
Thank you. And if
Thank
the
you, each
mayor
one of you.
come back, thank you, Mr. Aguirre.
Thank you.
All right. You have the Leja Farms proposal.
Thank you. Get subcommittee members. Let me share my screen. Oops. Presentation. Sorry about that. Okay. All right. Thank you, subcommittee members. This item is called the Empower Logic Campus, and the applicant is Glenn Stern. The applicant has actually submitted a pre-application for this project. And we've provided some comments, but we also thought it would be a good idea to present this in front of the Economic Development Subcommittee. So the applicant does propose a private membership-driven global cultural resort focused on music, art, and food. And this site would include outdoor performance venues, restaurants, lodging, retail, education center, and audio and video production studios. The site is 3 parcels, 35.5 acres. It's known as Leja Farms, and there's an existing date orchard, 2 existing residences, and 2 fruit processing plants. The applicant wants to do this as a phased project. The site has land use for regional commercial on the north side, and to the south, general neighborhood land uses, which is intended for residential development. This is an aerial of the site, so includes these 3 parcels, largely surrounded by agricultural uses. But there have been entitlements in the past to the east for residential subdivisions. And this parcel right here is actually owned by the Coachella Valley Unified School District. So there may be the intent by the school district to build a school. We don't know at this time. And the nearest streets are Van Buren to the west and 52nd Street to the north. So this is a look at our land use. So the north includes regional retail district and the south general neighborhood. And so how does this work for this development? Is this even allowed with the land use? Well, the regional retail district, this northern portion does allow for entertainment uses. So it would allow for something that they're proposing, but the southern portion is really intended for residential uses. So if this was a permanent long-term use, then they would need to modify the land use to allow for it. But if it was an interim use that was short-term, we could allow for something like this through an entertainment permit. So this is phase 1.
Hey, what's the yellow zone? So you
Yellow
have
is residential, single family residential. And then this blue is educational institutional uses, which is the school site.
and the site behind it, if I'm not mistaken, I believe did it move back to an agricultural use? for the time being?
Yeah, I'll show you that right here. So this aerial, so Anthony Vineyards, they own these parcels, right? And I think they have sold off to entitle this. You can kind of see how this street ends here. It was intended to continue to develop a future neighborhood here, and this street ends here. And you can kind of see the street configurations were preserved, but they planted date palms around where those future streets could be located. And so they had a process subdivision that has since expired. So they would have to re-entitle that if they were going to build homes again.
You see where that water basin, that water on the south side, that area is not entitled, right there?
It's not entitled now.
And is that the area that the tribe bought, or no? No, the tribe
No,
might-
it's not. But it's zoned for single-family residential uses,
okay, but not entitled. Okay.
not entitled. And so the city boundary actually hugs a portion of this site on Van Buren, and it continues this way. So this is also zone regional retail, and this is the I believe the Chuchian properties. And just IT, I just wanted to bring it to your attention. There are a couple people that are going to participate as panelists, and one is Glenn Stern, if he's in the audience. So phase one for this project is a 35,000 square foot outdoor venue. So this is the northern portion of that Later Farm site.
Yeah, I'm here just to say hello. Hi, Gabriel. Hi, everybody. Thank you.
Hi, Glenn. Yeah, and I'm going to pass it on to you, Glenn, if you want to add anything else after my presentation. So just want to let you know that. Fender Dome is proposed here. So this would be a rotating stage venue for musical performances. And then in this area would be 102 shift pods that would allow for potential like lodging on the site. To the north along Avenue 52 would be parking for this venue. And there would be dining, food trucks in this location. There would be retail kiosks, restrooms to serve everyone on the facility. And the applicant did provide a rendering of what this venue could look like, a three-dimensional venue. So this is that dome structure we were talking about. This is that outdoor stage area. This is the parking area that he's indicated. And Glenn, what is this building here?
Which one, sir? Oh, that's the house that exists there right now. There's a 3-bedroom house. That's the address of that property.
Okay, thank you. And then phase two to the south, there would include additional parking. There is a date venue here, date house venue. So they would repurpose that and make that an indoor venue. A 4,800 square foot concessions and retail located in this building. I mean, outside stage, 18,000 square feet. And then studio production performance in this location of 45,000 square feet. And then I think you mentioned these would be potential like short-term stay, tiny house configurations in this location in pink, right?
Yes.
That would be phase two. And then phase three to the south would include this village configurations, 60,000 square feet. There would be 65 to 100. I guess there would be short-term stay or hotel rooms.
Yep.
There would be a restaurant location in here. So it's very conceptual at this time. And then a bar and stage in the center. So overall, this is what it would look like. And so there definitely is a lot to this project. He does propose it in several stages. We did express some concerns, right? Because there are some potential noise impacts that would affect surrounding uses. So if this develops as a school site, or if this develops as residential, if you have an outdoor stage, well, how do you mitigate those impacts considering the surrounding uses? So that's going to have to be evaluated as part of the project in terms of any kind of noise studies. And so we had expressed that to the applicant. You know, we also recommended it would probably be good to communicate with Anthony Vineyards about their future plans and the school to make sure that this project wouldn't conflict with their project. But also in the future, this was a long-term use that the applicant would propose, then the southern site would have to be rezoned to allow for the entertainment use. So this whole site would need to be regional retail commercial district. And then this is just putting the site in a horizontal orientation. North is this way, south is the other direction. And so this is the full site layout. A lot of it's conceptual. At this time, the applicant has been refining their concept. But that's the end of my presentation, and I want to leave it up to Glenn if he wants to add anything about the intent and any other things about this project.
It's so great. Thank you. And I have, hi everybody. Thank you for all your time today. It's very, very kind of you to give it to us. And I'm online with our administrator, Lisa, and our engineer, Hayward. And they're listening in. And that, yeah, great presentation. And in our last meeting that we had and realizing the different challenges around that bottom parcel of what's zoned for dense residential, we've kind of alternated the plan a little bit in regards to, if you could, Gabriel, could you bring up, please, the color-coded zoning map that you had? Yeah, right there, perfect. So we're in negotiations. So that top square red piece right there, that zone commercial on part of the property we're talking about, the catty corner across underneath that 3 on the left side, yeah, right there. There's 17 acres and we're currently in negotiations to acquire that property. And in doing so, all of the things that you just described, the villages and anything of noise other than dense residential, which is what that bottom parcel is zoned for, because basically our goal is to keep it now, it's different, is to keep it all the same zoning, go along with the school and we're going to develop that bottom part as a community that's attached to the production, the entertainment, the retail, and all the other amenities that our project provides. Sort of a, you know, if we build up and obviously in scale to a 3,000 to 4,000 to 5,000 person event center, it'll be very easy to fill those condos, residences, you know, what you call it. And then that second piece in the middle underneath the red one, that where the Date Farm manufacturing plant is, that's currently, as I understand, agricultural commercial, and we would possibly turn that into the park area of the property, and then move all the commercial stuff to that top left piece, along with the, you know, the corner. I can't use my mouse, but that corner piece, that top one, you know, the main commercial part, yeah, part 1 right there, that one. And then up to the left, all the commercial stuff stays on this piece and then goes up to the left, leaving the park in the middle where the, yes, that's the park. And then below would just be all residences and quiet, you know, very well developed residences. So to your presentation, that's a little bit of the thinking that we did to not disrupt anybody's flow and stay within the commercial confines that you guys have for that corner, understanding that, you know, we'd probably have to build a walkway and widen the streets and obviously build all the curbs necessary, can do in development. Our first goal is we are in escrow, and we are acquiring the property on February 21st. And we have no rush in what our needs are, but to keep our business going and to start in a very slow, scalable way, I'd like to work with the city and see how we could minimally scale our business to the existing property, you know, on a temporary, limited basis, so that it gives us time to do the proper studies and crop proper improvements to handle larger crowds, so to speak. So our initial thing is to just, between 50 people to maybe the maximum on any one day might be 800 people at any given time. And, a dedicated acre of parking to 200 cars. It's all privately invitation only. There's no public advertising. There's 35 different revenue streams for the city and for us to benefit from, even in a small scale. The business plan that we have demonstrates about $1 million in sales, in taxable sales, for that top square piece per month, with a very minimal amount of traffic. I mean, throughout the month, maybe all 30 days, collectively 2,500 people have come by to the property. Another real big advantage I see for us and for the city and for the area is acquiring that top left piece of property across the street and using that as parking. And that will relieve some of the tension. And that's to start, and eventually develop it into a commercial hotel and move the villages and everything kind of up that way into the more the better zoned area and better community. This is a great community resource of music and art, food and culture. And there's really a lot of countless ways that it benefits the community, it benefits the city, it benefits our business and our other communities that will come for the experience that we will provide. So we're very excited to work with the city and see how our goals can fit to benefit everybody involved. And one other slight thing is we want to work very closely with the tiny home manufacturers in the area. There's quite a few, and we want to be a demonstration property for them, because we understand the need for lodging in Coachella. It's very important, and we want to be part of that. And we want to create creative glamping or fun places to stay, for different events. So by working with these manufacturers, we'd like to have them give us maybe 3 different versions of their tiny homes, and we would actually present them. We would demo them. People would stay in them, and we would actually sell them. And they could. And the ones we're talking about are on wheels. They're self-sustaining. They have everything's contained in water. It cuts down on a lot of the utility requirements that we may have. And then people could actually buy them and drive them home, or we could ship them. But the idea is, working with the manufacturers, and maybe 6 or 7 of them, each give us 3 of them, and people have different options to stay in, and it's promoting their business. And it's kind of thing. I see it as a win-win. And I saw one of your other business concepts about the RVs, and it kind of triggered that thought that, what a great idea. We're thinking that already, to sell these tiny homes. So we'll be like a tiny home sales lot, if you will, promoting that way. So pretty much our goals, and to start minimally and grow and scale to your requirements. We're prepared to be ready to present our adjustments to the land and to the safety and the medical needs for a small CUP, just to have people, the grading and the ground and everything. We should be ready for a preparation report to you. First week of February would be really great if we could present our progress, for you to possibly give us a CUP or permission to have private events on the property without causing any chaos. Is that good? Gabriel, you there?
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. So thank you for that, Glenn. But you know, the question, I think for us presenting this to the subcommittee is the applicant's proposing, you know, kind of like a music entertainment venue in this location, right? And so
On the top one, yeah, on the top one.
is you know, considering that location, is that something you'd like to see, right? You know, other alternatives on that site. I remember in the past, back in around 2008, the reason this area was zoned for regional commercial was the anticipation of kind of like a larger big box retail area that would include like retailers like Target and Home Depot. Now the big box may have changed, right? Because there's like less big box than there was back then. And it's now geared towards more small scale shopping. And so, you know, the applicant proposes something very different from a shopping center, right? More of a entertainment venue, you know, so.
With retail, there'll be a lot of retail as well, Gabriel.
And
There'll be
retail
lots of
combined
retail.
with it, right? So the question
Yeah.
is that something that is appealing to the subcommittee?
I
It is a use
I
that
get it.
would be allowed in the regional retail area. But again, there are some surrounding uses that we need to consider. And it looks like the applicant, Glenn, he has considered that and is looking at some other options to make sure he avoids those kind of impacts to surrounding single-family residential neighborhoods.
So Gabe, thank you for this presentation, and I think for me right now is I think it's a good idea that we take advantage of this 52 corridor and pursue, you know, some type of complement to obviously the larger venue that's down the street in our neighboring city. You know, you know, does this site become, you know, a secondary third market where there's after parties or there's different uses? Perhaps, right? I think the other thing that we need to consider is that, you know, the city is looking at, you know, this Vista Santa Rosa annexation, and there's venues out there that have similar kind of proposals or uses. I wouldn't say call them proposals, but uses, and in terms of what they do, and some of them want to do, you know, CUPs and do events throughout the year, and some of them just simply want to do like short-term home rentals, or if they want to do, you know, just function as quinceañera venues and ranchos, etc. And I guess for me is that where does that line start when we're thinking about it? Is it here at Van Buren? I do like the fact that we're thinking about 51. We have to think about 52 as well. And then how do we ultimately envision this area? Now, the one thing I will say, Glenn, that you should turn your stage. Don't have your stage pointing the sound into the residential community. Turn it the other way. Turn it into the farm.
Into the trees. Yeah, into the trees. Yes, sir. Yeah, we have a sound engineer that will come and help us mitigate the sound continuation. So we're going to put some berms in the sound. It's a very high concentrated focus for us is to control the sound. And yes, exactly to your point, the stage that will, and Hayward's in this call, he's listening, but we're going to systematically adjust that to maximize this.
Mhm. Yeah, I do believe as well that, you know, I didn't see any. Well, I imagine that your tiny homes are going to also function as like short-term rentals or rentals in general, and we do have to think about the proximity of this site to other sites that we know are going to have events more than just 3 weeks out of the year. They are planning for more events.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. We're 365. We're every day. We're not even, Coachella Festival is really not our focus. We only complement that with a few things, maybe through relationships that we have at Golden Voice and different things. But our business model, the membership, the educational part of it, the everyday development of craft and art, it separates us. It's an event venue, yes. It is a tiny homes and glamping, yes. It's also an incredible resource for networking and production of craft. So community-wise, this is a place that somebody that wants to make music or make art or some sort of intellectual property can come here and do so and get other resources to help them achieve their goals. And we're very different than, say, a Coachella. I know where it is, and the attraction of what we do based on the sound and the concerts that we want to present. It's the perfect spot for us, with the city and the farming and things like that. But yes, as far as the community goes, we are so far different than just a concert hall. That's really, out of the month, might be 2 or 3 days that outside, yeah, thanks, Gabriel, that outside venue, maybe once a week, that outside venue has, I'd like to get it, sustainable to 5,000 people based on if we have to widen the road and go along with the city and the planning to make it really nice. And also keeping that, like I said, across the street, leaving that other stuff on the bottom, very residential, very quiet. But the amount of, inside the dome, that's where we could do production. We could do recordings in there. We do recordings in the house. Our footprint will be very minimal. Our revenues will be high because we're creating content. So following the rules to stay with, to the impact of the community is very important. And we're going to do sound, like I said, we're going to build sound things to keep the sound continuation at a minimum. And again, follow your lead as far as what's sustainable. I mean, the ultimate goal is to have an inside venue there that you can, the sound won't carry at all, and it'll be state of the art. This is a phase one. I see this, the one that we're looking at right now, within 24 months, I think everything else would be getting built on here in a more permanent, developed architectural way to benefit the community. I don't mean to talk so much, but there's a lot to convey. But yes, sir. Thank you.
You're excited. Yeah, I think, again, the question is, and Gabriel, I'm looking at you, is where do we start the complement, and then in terms of, Vista Santa Rosa, annexation, Coachella, and then taking full advantage of this 52 corridor and our own economic development opportunity.
Yes. Let's do that together. Yes, sir. I'm excited and eager to input any other amenities or services that you would like to present. We're all about it.
So, I think the feedback for Glenn would be helpful on, one is if this is the right site, is it the right general area? Is it the right parcel? Should he be looking somewhere else? He's really interested in doing this in the city. So we want to kind of do this so that, obviously he doesn't spend a lot of resources and maybe it's not the right location, right? And so that's why we mentioned to him, hey, got to consider all these things like, neighborhoods that might build around this site. There's a school that's constructed nearby, but, he'll be able to develop his concept more. We've kind of relayed to him what we think the entitlement process would be for his project. So we have to understand what's going to be the short-term part of this project, which might be the entertainment permit, and what's going to be the long-term, which would actually require architectural review, potential tentative track maps, other conditional use permits that may be required.
Yeah,
Maybe.
that would be a great start. Yeah, that'd be a great start.
So a lot of things are very conceptual at this point. But, you know, if this sounds like something that could be supported in the city, you know, that would be helpful for him to understand.
Gabe, are there other parcels as well that you think could be, you know, kind of meet this use, just so that we can point Glenn to the right area?
So, you know, like, for example, I think these parcels here are also regional retail that could support this type of use, but then not be next to single family residential. Maybe the site that he talked about could work as well, but we do have an application to the north for a subdivision or a single family residential neighborhood. And so just kind of thinking about, you know, impacts, I mean, you're probably going to have less impacts the further you are away from more dense residential neighborhoods. So a lot of that's probably a little bit more in this direction. And so on this site, you know, he will have to really mitigate for those noise impacts like traffic that could impact neighborhoods just nearby, right? So
that'll be in time too. I mean, for the first season, you know, we might have, I mean, if you guys say, hey, look, you can't have more than 300 people on the property at one time, and you can't have more than 100 cars, whatever you set the rules, and that would be a good starting point. And then we would do the appropriate adjustments to the environment or and do the studies necessary to grow that CUP, if you will. It's a high generating revenue center for all of us. You know, 3,000, you know, we'll have $300,000 days, you know, 2 or 3 times a month. And then the rest of the time, there'll be a lot of work going on. There'll be educational stuff. There'll be community workshops. There'll be member events. There'll be, you know, other local different events. So yeah, if that's possible, that top left corner, or just the focus on that top square and that acres, yeah. And just, you know, before that becomes residential to the right, you know, you guys might say, well, you have to make sure that your noise is inside a building by 2025, or, you know, and we'll work with that. You know, we'll go along with the plan of the neighborhood. But I think at any rate will be a benefit to the neighborhood. We're a venue. We're going to bring, you know, side cooks to Michelin chefs in there. There'll be a lot of really fun events. It'll be classy, and it'll, I think, you know, between the music and the art, it'll be a real highlight for everybody involved. Like to be a city resource, you know, for different events that you may have. For the fire department too, we'd like to do events for them and cover, you know, their needs. And that's, you know, we really want to be a part of the community. And yeah, there's going to be some big events, but it's never going to be something like Coachella on any day on that, like that festival. It'll be smaller, classy, well-contained, overcompensated for safety, and community aware. That's really the thing. So if you decide that's not the spot, I get it. You know, you know, it seems like all the things are lining up to make it work. And we just want to follow that path and see if it can. Thank you so much, Gabriel, and Mr. Mayor and everybody else on the call. Yes, thank you very much.
Gabriel, the land that you pointed out right next to it, would it really make that much of a difference though, as far as sound goes? I mean, it's still such in close proximity to that residential area.
Yeah, it would be probably better. So this property is owned by one landowner and it continues further to the west, right? So ideally, the further west you are, the better it's going to work out, right? Because there's mostly large agricultural field and ranches in that area. You don't have a lot of that residential density. You know, there are some properties available in that area that we're aware of right now, but you know, those could be some potential options.
That spot, Gabriel, up to the left, the one that I was talking about, that one is full. Yep. That one's fully surrounded by commercial space. There's no residential zoning touching that, which makes it ideal in what we're talking, I think, in what we're talking about. And shifting the commercial part of our business to that space, because it is surrounded by commercial, just like what the councilwoman said, that, you know, the further away we, you know, to the left, and there's another duplicate land. If you go back to that color coded thing that you have, yeah, that 3, and then right above the 3, there's a school right there. But where that 3 is another commercial property, and then right below the 3 is the 17 acres that I'm mentioning to the right. No, underneath the 3.
Yeah.
Yep, right there.
So he's.
Yeah.
so
I'd like
it
to
looks-
put a hotel there with an inside venue. That's the goal, is to eventually put a hotel right there. I mean, start it with parking just to get it moving and generate some revenue, and to complement the entertainment part of it, but then eventually develop that spot as a hotel. And also eventually the outside noise is only really temporary. I would say within 24 months, if it was necessary, we could have 0 outside noise. Because, you know, we'll architect a building and we'll build it proper, we'll put in the curbs and we'll develop. So in the long term, as that school and as the other residentials get developed, we'll be sound worthy by then. I don't know how to say it. We'll be sound ready. We won't be disturbing them. You know, the traffic is one thing, and we might, you know, the roads and the lights, and we can go with that and see what, you know, what amount works with what. You know, we're very flexible. But yeah, as far as noise goes, you know, I get it. People don't want the noise. So we're going to do very intricate things to curb the continuation of the sound, which is the low end. So some of the stuff they're talking about is building or lowering the outside venue so that it has natural earth berms, if you will, and the low ends that carry that go to the next door neighbor actually go up, and they don't really hear it that much. So we'll do that as well to start. And we will also do a noise study, which I found out takes about a month and a lot of money. I was very surprised. But as we ask for a bigger CUP of people to come to increase revenue, you know, we will be working with them based on that report of how do we structure the noise. It might be, hey, you can't have any events outside except on these days of the year. You know, you say on 6 days a year you can have outside stuff, and on the rest of it has to be in indoors. We're prepared for all that. We're okay with all that. It doesn't have to be one way. We just want to be able to present craft. We want to be able to present performance. We want to entertain and build bridges through charity and community and all the things that we do. So sometimes it'll be fun, especially if we make that middle piece a park where the date center.
But we want to work with you. I think we've got to really help you find that site, if it's this one or others, and really kind of just present pros and cons on potential options for you. I do like the idea. I do like the fact that you're being entrepreneurial and that you're really thinking about complements and really thinking about the 52 corridor. I do like your enthusiasm, and we just want to set you up to win. That's what we want to do.
Appreciate that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, but I do appreciate the conversation, and thank you for being bold.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot to digest, and you know we're in escrow to close on February 21st. So it really all depends on how far we can get as a team to reach goals for the city and reach our goals. And maybe there is another spot, very possible, and we're open for that. I'm very big fan of Mr. Leja. Mr. Greg Leja is an incredible man. I couldn't say enough about him. So the fact that I get to buy it from him and have him part of it is stellar, and that we have our own well, and there's a lot of things to it. So yeah, any considerations or problems or challenges that are, you know, please let us know. Please let me know. I'm eager.
So hold on,
to know.
Gabriel, I'm not done yet. So we're looking at the parcel that's adjacent to where the entertainment venue is being proposed. which is close to, I think, Coral Mountain Elementary School. Obviously, the question here is whether we want an entertainment facility and whether we want it in this area, whether this area here is suitable. The three parcels here that have that been purchased already, or are you?
That is what we are in escrow with. Yes, those 3 parcels. Yes.
Okay. So considering that you're already in escrow, I guess it would be whether, Gabriel, that parcel then adjacent to it, making a little bit more farther away would be a better location. I also like the idea of having some type of venue and bringing something new to the city. I also like that it's basically in an area where we know other cities or folks coming in from out of town would probably be more accessible to or open to. I think one thing we have to also consider is obviously the parking is, do we want people, I mean, if this is the sites that we're looking at, whether it's the corner there on Avenue 52 or the one that's the one that you're considering adjacent, which is close to Coral Mountain Elementary School. As far as like parking is, where we would have parking, where would the entrance be? I don't think, if this is the sites that we're considering, I don't think that the entrance should be on Avenue 52. And I think we already talked a little bit about that. But then also is obviously like the overflow parking. I know that you had mentioned that perhaps that adjacent property would be used for parking. I prefer something that's more accessible and open to everyone. And then also really quickly, so we have 4 phases altogether. We have the entertainment phase, and then we have the retail phase, and then the 3rd phase would be the housing. Is that accurate?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, and
And
the
then
parking would be temporary on that left thing. It would only be temporary to get it functional until we did the proper plans to develop a hotel on that lot, on that top left lot. Yes, ma'am.
And so when we're talking about, and I know we're jumping into many things, I mean, even we're talking about the hotel, I know that's right now currently zoned for retail. So there's a lot to discuss, but I do really want to start on the entertainment portion of it all together. And then because this is a regional retail district, is that retail portion, would that also be just private, or would that be open to?
No, open to the public all the time. Yes, ma'am. Yes, always open to the public.
It's just a venue that would be private.
No, not even the venue. The venue would be not private, but our clients are the ones that populate the venue. So the venue itself is not necessarily promotion. We would work with different entities, maybe the city, maybe the fire department, and our clients that owns a label that has several bands that would be doing a show, and they would bring their audience to the city to the show. Yes. The retail would be music oriented, art oriented, food oriented, things that complement craft, things that we do, things of music. There'll be lessons available. There'll be instruments available. To sell retail instruments, lessons. We've been doing this for years in Orange County. So yes, we will be applying all of that. We'll be bringing a lot of music and craft and education to the spot. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then also if, Gabriel, if this is one of the options that you're gonna bring back, is I do recommend if we can remove the parking off of Avenue 52 and maybe shift it to the, yes, what is that? Is that Calhoun?
That's Van Buren on the left.
On Van Buren, I do ask that simply because Avenue 52 is a street that's highly used, and I prefer not to bring even more traffic onto Avenue 52. So if you're going to bring this back, Gabriel, as one of the site locations or other possible site locations, is that if we can remove the parking off of Avenue 52 and then maybe open it up to Van Buren, if that's
not a problem. Not a problem.
And then also the mayor brought up a good point as far as when we're looking at special event permits, is that what does that look like? And then obviously if this is a site location that we're looking at, obviously it does need to be added in as an entertainment zone. But then what does that special event permit look like? Because that's something that we're in discussion, and I know that's something that we're bringing forward. But also is that what are we requiring there? Since this is going to be, as you mentioned, 365 days a year. And so I would also like to look at that as well, is that, what does that look like? And, what are the conditions to it? So I would also like to have that discussion as well.
Excellent. Yes, yes. The bigger end outside concert stuff is a minimal part of the actual function of the property. So yeah, getting all that discussed into context is good. There's good days for it and a lot of reasons to support it, but it's the purpose of the place is to generate craft and the resources for people to do that. So there's members that will do events there, and there's sponsors that will do events there, and it'll all be very classy, and we can go in the growth, whether it's this place or whichever place. I'd still like to stay in Coachella if at all possible. There's no question about it. That we grow with the needs of the space. And you're very aware of your city and how that needs to be done. So please, let's have that conversation whenever we're able to.
Very
I
good.
would like to stay in Coachella as well. Gabriel, the property that Anthony Vineyards owns, so has that been rezoned? Because obviously right now it's residential.
No, it's commercial.
Oh, yeah, so Anthony Vineyards on this map owns this parcel.
And he owns the one across the street too.
Yeah.
This one too?
No, the other one where the Target was going to be.
Over
Yeah,
here?
where the Target is, I know he wants a lot for that land too. His price is a little bit high.
Yeah.
That makes it difficult, but yeah, he did. I think because he fell out with Target twice.
Yeah, we have talked about alternatives. We even pointed to the Glenroy Hotel site, right? Because they were trying to sell that property.
Yeah,
And-
somebody got it. Somebody locked it up.
Yeah, so he actually contacted the seller on that property because this venue is kind of compatible with what was proposed with the Glenroy Resort.
So so the Glenroy is in escrow?
No,
Sorry.
what I understood was that somebody went under contract with it, or they made a new arrangement with a developer, and they wouldn't talk to me about purchasing it. They shut it down. It was available when I found this place with Mr. Leja, but as we developed and looked at the different things, and it was represented actually in one of our conversations, and then we chased it, and yeah, it's locked up. Not to say that it's going to finish, but right now it's not. I don't know. You guys could probably know more than me. Yeah.
So where Anthony Vineyards owned that property, that's currently zoned as residential.
Yes, so I'll show you on the map right here. So see how
Yeah,
it's
it's
yellow?
It's
Yeah.
residential.
And then to the south is residential.
So even though it's residential, he's been using it for agriculture.
Yeah, we have policies in our general plan that have like a right to farm ordinance. So if they've historically used it for that purpose, they can continue to do that.
I guess for me, the only concern is obviously because that is zoned for residential, is that later on, if they choose to develop there, it is zoned for housing.
As we
So-
can move the entertainment, any noise or any traffic is moving across the street. That's where I thought about that too. And if I may point out that the urban, is it general neighborhood there below?
Yeah.
Gabriel, yeah, that one right there. We did switch our plans. The villages would not go there. The dense residential would. So we look to develop that just as it sits, along with that middle piece too. So if there's a way I could get that the red across the street, the Target, the old Target property, that would be amazing. Or even that one. Any of these, that's not for sale. That one right there is not for sale. The top left one is, and then across the street to the left is. But they're holding out. They're starting to think that they have valuable land. So I think if it goes across the street, it's less impact. But that bottom part could be dense residential, very nice condos, Airbnbs or stays like that, just to say. Thank you, sorry.
Well, I think we have pretty good discussion, and if you'd like to meet with any member here offline, that's welcome. And but yeah, I think generally we're supportive. I think it's a matter of ensuring that everything's going to win and setting you up for success.
That's a great attitude. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. That's very kind. And that's our goal too. It's a big project and it takes all of us in a village, I mean, to do this. It's crazy. But if done together and with everybody in consideration, you know, anything's possible. So yes, I appreciate the opportunity and my team does as well. Yeah, we can keep it quiet. Right now, it's just us in the trees. So maybe, you know, one of the biggest questions I would have is if we could just get temporary, you know, what kind of temporary use permits may we get just to get us through the spring so that I can actually just exercise my business in a private fashion. And then as we go, you know, develop it out as needed. And
Glenn, I think that's maybe where you can talk to Gabriel about
Yeah,
what.
okay, great.
We could talk about the offline. There are some timing issues we have to talk about, but
Perfect, thank you.
you know, I think Glenn, you've received some good feedback, and we can work with you, figure out kind of what the best option is going to be, and you know, further refine your concept.
Okay.
Love it. Love it.
All right.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Glenn. And then with that, on the agenda, we have new business calendar, which there are none. Is there any public comments? Seeing none, we're adjourned.